在上海，优质女因为一道菜被男生给 pass 了。
Last week, I arranged a meetup for single men and women in Shanghai. Both parties were quite satisfied with each other's conditions. But after having a meal together, the connection was cut off. I was curious, so I asked the man for the reason. It turned out that during the date, the woman ordered foie gras, which made the man decide not to continue seeing her. Later, I was rather puzzled because during the date, they seemed to get along quite well, and both were considered to be of high quality. Why would the man pass on the woman just because of a dish of foie gras? The man explained that the issue wasn't the price of the foie gras, but rather that the woman's income was only 7,000 yuan. Even after the man had already ordered several expensive dishes, the woman still added a costly foie gras dish. The man felt that the woman's spending habits were problematic and that her consumption habits might exceed her income level. He worried that if two people with such a significant income gap got married, their future expenses would be even more imbalanced. Therefore, the man decided that their consumption values were entirely incompatible and chose not to continue the relationship. What do you think about this situation? A few days ago, my friend told me about her blind date experience. She said that during her first meeting with the guy, he asked her a question, "Can you cook?" Actually, my friend can cook, but since it was their first meeting, she felt they weren't familiar with each other yet, so she answered that she couldn't cook. Unexpectedly, the guy seriously responded, "You can't cook, and I can't cook either. If we were to live together in the future, we might not even be able to eat." The girl laughed and said, "Can't you just order takeout?" After hearing this, the guy's expression became very serious, and he said to the girl, "Sorry, I think we're not suitable for each other because you're a woman who doesn't know how to manage a household." After saying that, the guy turned around and left, leaving the girl there alone. This experience left my friend feeling both helpless and amused, and she came to ask me, "Are guys nowadays really so lacking in manners? Is it really appropriate to ask a girl if she can cook on the first meeting?" What do you think about this situation? Would you be willing to date a girl who can't cook?
现在条件好的男生真的挺拽的。
It's true that some well-off guys can be quite arrogant. Just last week, I recommended a girl to a guy, and they arranged to meet in person. After their meeting, I was surprised to find out that the guy had blocked the girl right away. The girl felt very wronged and came to me to tell the story. She said that during the meeting, they actually had a good chat. After dinner, she told the guy, "You should pay the bill." The guy was taken aback and then said, "Let's go Dutch." The girl was unwilling and felt that it was inappropriate for the guy to ask her to split the bill on their first date. When she expressed her disagreement, the guy paid for his own part and left without looking back. When she got home, she found that she had been blocked by the guy. The girl then asked me to find out the guy's thoughts. The guy told me that he actually thought the girl was pretty, and her personality was nice. They had a good conversation, and he was originally planning to pay the bill. However, before he could act, the girl urged him to pay, which he found very unpleasant. So, he suggested going Dutch, but the girl responded with, "Why should the girl pay?" This made him even more frustrated, and he blocked her as soon as he got home. He also mentioned that he has a house and a car, earns around 200,000 yuan a year, and although he's 34 this year and not in a hurry to find a partner, he'd rather not waste time on girls with this attitude. So, girls need to understand that in matchmaking situations, it's not always appropriate to expect the guy to pay the bill, especially with high-quality men who might be more sensitive to this attitude.
今天呢，有个女生跟我说，她相亲结束后想把饭钱 A 给女生，却发现自己已经被对方删除了。
Today, a girl told me that after a blind date, she wanted to split the bill with the guy but found out she had already been deleted by him. What's going on here? This girl was introduced to a guy through a mutual acquaintance. The guy described himself as coming from a wealthy family with a good job and promised a dowry of 380,000 yuan after marriage. Hearing these promises, the girl agreed to meet him. They arranged to meet in the city center. However, after meeting, the girl was very disappointed with the guy because his actual appearance did not meet her expectations. She places a high value on looks. Although the guy had sent her a photo, it was heavily edited. When she saw him in person, she felt very repelled and couldn't accept him. But out of respect, she didn't show her displeasure at the scene and just wanted to leave as soon as the meal was over. During the meal, the guy had chosen a restaurant with a group buy deal in advance, but the girl suggested going to another place for barbecue, and the guy agreed. When they arrived at the barbecue restaurant, The girl specifically mentioned that she felt a bit awkward having dinner with him since they both lived far away. The guy had taken an hour and a half to get there specifically to meet her. Although she didn't like him at first, she felt it was impolite to reject outright, so she reluctantly accepted. During ordering, the guy unexpectedly moved from across the table to sit next to her and started to hold her waist while ordering, which surprised the girl. She quickly pushed his hand away. Throughout the meal, the guy kept using his own used chopsticks to serve food to her. Despite her repeated reminders not to do that, he seemed to not understand and continued. To avoid further unpleasantness, the girl decided not to eat. After the meal, when they left the restaurant, the guy insisted on holding the girl's hand, but she refused. The guy was very angry and complained that during the blind date, she wouldn't even let him hold her hand or put his arm around her waist, and she wouldn't eat the food he offered. Finally, he left in anger. The girl felt that the guy had traveled such a long distance, so she wanted to split the bill with him. However, she found out that she had already been deleted by him. What do you think was going through this guy's mind?
操！我袜子滑出来了。
不能驼背，不能驼背。
他怎么不说话？还蛮稳重成熟的嘛。
喂，真不该吃大蒜了，都刷3遍了，嘴里怎么还是有味儿？
哎，我们去哪里吃饭呀？
你不刚训下去2份脆皮五花肉，一不烤冷面，还有杯奶茶的吗？我看着都饱了。
那儿吧。
第一次吃饭就选这个地方。
我也没想到你还没吃饱啊。
算了算了，毕竟是第一次，矜持一点。
其实人家平时比较少吃肉啦，你也知道女生嘛，吃的比较少。
是啊，你应该多吃一点的。
你应该少吃一点的。
今天跟你出来开心。
我也是。
那我先回家了，我也早点。
好，拜拜。
你也走这边吗？
你也走这边吗？
我也走这边。
好巧。
说实话，把我笑的简直都要喷饭了。
Today, when I went on a date with a girl who was introduced to me, I laughed so hard that I almost choked on my food. The girl said her annual salary is 200,000 yuan, and she expects the man to have an annual salary of 300,000 yuan. Is that too much to ask? I answered, not at all. Then she continued, saying she is 1.64 meters tall, and expects the man to be 1.75 meters tall. Is that unreasonable? I nodded again and said, not at all unreasonable. Next, she said she owns a car and a house but only requires the man to own a house. Is that excessive? I nodded once more and said, absolutely reasonable. She then asked me if it is reasonable for her to require the man to be unmarried, since she herself has never been married. I nodded again and said, of course it's reasonable. She doesn't think she's unattractive. Although she had applied a meticulous makeup, the heavy foundation still couldn't conceal everything. So I answered, you're certainly not unattractive, but why emphasize these conditions during our date? The girl replied, I'm just stating my requirements. If you can't meet these standards, then we are not suitable. She then nonchalantly took a sip from her drink. She mentioned that my age shouldn't be more than 2 years older than hers. So, how old are you this year? I asked curiously. To my surprise, the girl said, if you're really here for a blind date, shouldn't you already know my age? She put down her cup, puzzled. I couldn't help but laugh and said, you're already 36 years old. As a man under 38, based on your requirements, I might as well find a woman around 30. Why should I choose you? She was stunned when she heard this, and I stood up and walked away immediately.
Today, we introduced a couple who met through a matchmaking service. During their first meeting, the woman made 3 demands. First, she asked the man to pay a bride price of 200,000 yuan, excluding any dowry. Moreover, this bride price must not be reduced by even a single penny. This 200,000 yuan must be formalized in a pre-marriage agreement and become the woman's personal property. Even if the couple divorces in the future, this money should remain entirely the woman's. Second, the woman demanded that her name be added to the property deed, with the house payments to be covered by the man's parents. After marriage, she does not plan to repay the mortgage, but if they divorce in the future, she expects to receive a proportional share of the property. Finally, the woman required that after marriage, the man's salary be used for family expenses, while the money she earns would be kept by herself. After hearing these demands, the man did not respond at all, left immediately, and blocked all of the woman's contact information. I really want to say, if the man was genuinely looking for a match and the woman was not sincerely interested but rather making wishes, she might as well go to a temple.
At 31 years old, I experienced a rejection from a blind date today. The rejection wasn't made face-to-face but happened even before we met. Here's what happened. A friend suddenly called me and introduced a guy for a blind date. Less than 2 hours later, the guy decided not to meet me. The reason was that when my friend introduced me, she mentioned that I own a house and a car. When the guy asked if these were bought outright, my friend honestly told him that I have a debt of 680,000 yuan. So this blind date ended before it even started, which left me both amused and distressed. The guy probably got scared just hearing my name because not only do I have a 680,000 yuan loan, but I'm also renting a house. Women might not understand why men would fear a woman buying a house before marriage. The reason is quite simple. If a woman has a mortgage before marriage, it means increased expenses and financial pressure after marriage. They worry that the woman's income might be entirely invested in her own house, making it harder to support the family. They also fear that having her own house will give the woman more leverage and more options, making it harder to control her. Such concerns are not without reason. People tend to avoid risks and seek benefits. However, if I had to choose again, I would still choose to buy a house while single. Marriage is no longer a must-have in my life. Living a better life is my pursuit. Marriage, for me, should be an addition to my life, not a necessity or an escape from reality. I believe women should live for themselves and have control over their own choices. Whether others choose you or not is not important.
A few days ago, my friend, who runs a matchmaking company, encountered a pair of singles who had a failed blind date. The issue arose during their first meeting. The woman requested to go to a Western restaurant, but the man flatly refused. Do you think this is reasonable? Here's the situation. A few days ago, a woman asked my friend to help her find a boyfriend. My friend matched her with a well-qualified man from their database. During their first meeting, the woman suggested going to a Western restaurant near my friend's office, but she was met with a direct refusal from the man. The man's reason for refusal was simple. He said that on the first date, he just wanted to see if the woman matched her photos. If he didn't feel a connection after meeting, there would be no need for a second date, and there would be no further contact. So the man believed there was no need to go to a Western restaurant for a meal to meet. He felt that meeting at a cafe for a coffee was already quite appropriate. He thought that this was considered enough. I feel that Chinese men these days are becoming increasingly tough. What do you think about the man's approach?